In a small village where the lush green trees whispered stories of ancestors, there lived a woman named Ngozi. She was the epitome of beauty, grace, and kindness, a beloved wife to Emeka and a loyal friend to all who knew her. Her marriage to Emeka was the envy of many in their village. They had been together for 10 years, and their bond seemed unbreakable. They built a life filled with love, laughter, and shared dreams. They had a daughter, Amara, a beautiful child who reminded them daily of the happiness they shared. But fate, as it often does, has a way of twisting what we hold dear. It all started when Ngozi began noticing strange things. Her husband, Emeka, had been distant for weeks, coming home late and avoiding her touch. His usual affection was replaced with a coldness that chilled her heart. And then there was her best friend, Ifeoma. Ifeoma had been Ngozi's closest confidant since childhood. They had shared everything from secrets to sorrows. But recently, Ifeoma had become more present in Emeka's life. She would often visit their home, stay late, and leave with a smile that seemed a little too knowing. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over their village, Ngozi found herself unable to sleep. The weight in her chest was too much to bear. She got up from the bed, quietly walked to the kitchen, and poured herself a glass of water. That was when she overheard the voices. Emeka and Ifeoma were outside, talking, laughing. But there was something in their voices, something in the way they whispered that made Ngozi's blood run cold. She tried to ignore it, tried to believe it was nothing, but deep inside she felt a gnawing, an unsettling truth taking root. The next day, her suspicions became a painful reality. Ngozi found a note tucked into Emeka's coat pocket, a note that was never meant for her eyes. It was from Ifeoma. The words written in the note burned into Ngozi's mind. Tonight, I'll be yours. Emeka belongs to us now. It was as if the world stopped spinning. Her hands trembled as she held the note. The betrayal cutting deeper than any wound could. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Instead, she steeled herself, determined to uncover the truth. The next night, as Emeka left for his evening duties, Ngozi followed. She had to know what was happening between them, and she would go to any lengths to find out. What she saw shattered her soul. Under the thick, towering trees of their village, she saw Emeka and Ifeoma embracing, their lips locked in a passionate kiss. Ngozi felt her heart break, her entire world crumble. The two people she trusted the most in the world, her husband and her best friend, had betrayed her in the most unimaginable way. She turned away before they saw her, her breath shallow, her body trembling. She staggered home, every step heavy with grief. When she entered her house, Amara was asleep in her room, blissfully, unaware of the storm that was about to descend upon their family. Ngozi knew she had to act, not out of rage, but out of a need for justice. She needed to confront them, to make them see the pain they had caused her. But she also needed something more, something deeper. The betrayal had torn apart her faith in love, in friendship, in everything she had once believed in. Ngozi spent the next few days in a haze of anger and sorrow. Her home felt like a prison, each corner reminding her of the love she thought was unbreakable. She confronted Emeka, hoping that perhaps there was some explanation, some lie she could forgive. But his words, those cold, hollow words, only deepened the wound. He admitted to the affair, his voice devoid of any remorse. He told her that he had grown distant from her. But Ifeoma understood him in ways she never did. The betrayal was complete. What made it worse was Ifeoma's indifference when Ngozi finally confronted her. Ifeoma, who had once been like a sister, stood before her with no shame. She laughed it off as if their actions were trivial, as if their betrayal had no meaning. "It's just love, Ngozi," she said dismissively, her words cutting deep. "Your love wasn't enough to keep him. I was what he needed." Ngozi felt a deep sense of humiliation, but there was no time for self-pity. She knew she had to make a choice. She could forgive them, but that would mean living in the shadow of this pain for the rest of her life. Or she could take a darker path, a path she had once heard only whispered about in the stories of their elders. The elders spoke of the Obanje, a spirit who could grant vengeance, but at a terrible cost. They spoke of forbidden witchcraft, of power that could right the wrongs but destroy everything in its wake. For days, Ngozi wrestled with herself, the weight of her decision pressing down on her like a stone. Finally, in the quiet of the night, when the village was asleep and the stars watched silently overhead, she sought out the old woman who lived at the edge of the village, Amaka, the herbalist and spiritual guide who had long been rumored to possess ancient knowledge. Amaka was a woman of great wisdom, her face etched with the marks of age and experience. She had seen the rise and fall of many, had witnessed the tragedies of those who dared to seek revenge. Ngozi found her sitting by a fire, her eyes glowing in the dark as she stirred a pot of herbs. "Why do you seek me, child?" Amaka asked, her voice soft but carrying the weight of the universe. Ngozi knelt before her, her heart pounding. She explained everything: the betrayal, the pain, the unbearable weight of losing the two people she had loved the most. "I want justice," she said, her voice cracking. "I want them to feel the pain they've caused me. I need to make them suffer." Amaka's eyes never left her, piercing through Ngozi's soul. "There is power in vengeance, child," Amaka said slowly, "but there is also a price. The blood of your enemies will stain your hands, and the darkness you seek may consume you whole. Are you willing to pay that price?" Ngozi did not hesitate. "Yes," she whispered, "I am willing to do whatever it takes." The old woman nodded solemnly and began to prepare a potion. She mixed herbs with roots, whispers of ancient incantations hanging in the air. "This will give you power," Amaka said. "But remember, once the darkness is cold, it will not be easily controlled. It will take what it is owed." Ngozi took the potion from Amaka's trembling hands. The liquid was dark, like the night sky, and as she drank it, she felt a surge of energy coursing through her. It was as if the earth itself had awakened beneath her feet, the weight of centuries of power flooding into her. But with that power came a sense of foreboding, a shadow that seemed to press in on her heart. The next day, as Ngozi returned to her home, she could feel the change within herself. It was subtle at first, a heightened sense of awareness, a sharpness to her thoughts, but soon it grew stronger. The earth beneath her feet seemed to hum with energy. She was no longer the same woman who had walked into Amaka's hut. With newfound clarity, she knew what she had to do. She waited for the perfect moment, when Emeka was vulnerable, when Ifeoma was near, and then she unleashed the power she had been given, watching with cold satisfaction as the consequences of their betrayal began to unravel. But what Ngozi hadn't anticipated was the toll it would take on her own soul. The darkness she had invited into her life began to seep into her heart, turning her thoughts darker, her action more vengeful. She could feel it, the anger, the hatred, the desire for revenge gnawing at her from within. Each time she saw the suffering she had caused, the emptiness inside her grew. As the days passed, Ngozi watched her revenge take shape. Emeka's once prosperous business began to fail. He lost clients, his health deteriorated, and he became a shadow of the man he had once been. Ifeoma, too, was not spared. The man she had stolen away from her friend turned his back on her, and her reputation within the village began to sour. People began to whisper to avoid her. The power of Ngozi's vengeance spread like a dark cloud, casting a long shadow over the lives of those who had betrayed her. But the satisfaction she had expected was elusive. It was as if the more pain she inflicted upon them, the emptier she felt. The darkness that had seeped into her soul, the power she had embraced, began to twist her thoughts. It was no longer just about Emeka or Ifeoma. It was about something much deeper. The anger that had once been an answer to her pain now began to consume her. She could feel the weight of it bearing down on her, like a constant pressure in her chest, squeezing the life out of her. It was then that she realized the price of the power she had called upon. It was not only her enemies who had suffered, it was her own soul that had been tainted. The more she used the forbidden magic, the more it took from her. Her peace, her joy, her humanity. One evening, as she sat alone in the dimly lit house, the wind howling outside, Ngozi saw a vision. It was a dream, but it felt so real. Her ancestors standing before her, their faces stern and wise. The air was thick with the weight of their disappointment. Ngozi, one of them spoke, her voice as ancient as time itself. You have called upon forces you do not understand. Vengeance is a bitter fruit and it poisons the soul. You have sought to hurt others, but in doing so, you have hurt yourself. Ngozi trembled as the vision faded, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never felt so alone, so lost. The love that had once filled her heart was now replaced with a cold, empty void. She had let anger consume her, and in doing so, she had lost herself. The weight of her ancestors' words was too much to bear. She had to undo what she had done. But how? The darkness she had summoned was not easily dismissed. It had become part of her, intertwined with her very being. And yet, she knew that to continue on this path would destroy her, her family, and everything she had once loved. Ngozi sought out Amaka once again, hoping for a way to reverse the damage. The old woman welcomed her into her hut with a grave expression, her eyes knowing. I did not tell you that the cost would be so high, did I? Amaka said softly, her voice filled with sorrow. The path you chose is one a few walks without falling. Now you must make amends, child, or be consumed by the very darkness you sought to wield. Amaka handed Ngozi a small vial filled with a clear liquid. This is the antidote, she explained. But be warned, undoing the damage will not be easy. It will require great sacrifice. You will need to give up what you hold most dear. Ngozi stared at the vial, the weight of her decision pressing down on her once more. Could she undo what she had done? Could she save her soul, save her family, or was it too late? As the full moon rose that night, Ngozi found herself standing at the village crossroads, the same place where she had once walked with hope in her heart. She looked down at the vial in her hand, the antidote to the dark magic she had used. The winds swirled around her, carrying the scent of the earth and the whispers of the past. With a deep breath, she poured the liquid onto the ground, watching as the light spread, dissolving the darkness she had summoned. For a moment, everything was still. Then, slowly, the weight lifted from her heart. The darkness, though still lingering, seemed to ease, like the first light of dawn after a long night. But the price had been paid. She had lost Emeka and Ifeoma forever. The love they had once shared was irreparably broken, and her family, though whole once again, would never be the same. Ngozi had learned the hard way that some wounds, once open, can never fully heal. The villagers spoke of Ngozi for years to come. Some said she had become wiser, stronger. Others said she was cursed, forever marked by the darkness she had embraced. But one thing was certain. Ngozi had learned that the greatest power is not in vengeance, but in forgiveness and the strength to move on. If this story touched you, if you felt the pain and the betrayal, hit that like button now and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done if you were in Ngozi's shoes? As she walked away from the crossroads, Ngozi felt the weight of her decision settle in her bones. But one thing was certain, she had found her peace. The path ahead would not be easy, but she would walk it with her head held high, knowing that sometimes the hardest journey is the one towards forgiveness. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the next story of betrayal, redemption, and the unexpected twist that life has in store. This story, like many in African tradition, reminds us that seeking vengeance often leads us down a path we cannot control. It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of betrayal, true strength lies in letting go and finding peace within ourselves.